Hey everyone, welcome to Chronic Briefs. I'm Dan Melito, and we have today another interview episode. I'm with two of my favorite people, Kelly Mack and Richard Faust. Kelly has had RA since she was 2 years old, and she works to spread the cause RA through her writing and appearances. And Richard, she's married to Richard, and he worked at NASA, and he's one of the smartest people I know. And I'm not the only person to say that. So how are you guys today?
Good. Doing well, thank you.
Listen, I got to tell you before we go on that I never told you this before. That you guys are, because I'm divorced, you guys, I look to you guys and you give me hope that someday I'm going to meet someone the way, and look to the way that you guys are.
We appreciate that.
12 years you've been together now?
Yeah,
15?
married 12 years.
12 years, wow. That's quite an accomplishment, and like I said, you guys give me hope. So, but I do want to start with another question, because I know a lot of people are anxious about it. You just got your first vaccine shot. How was that?
Yeah, it was good. It was a lot of anxiety just because we didn't even know if we had the appointment. Richard thought he booked it, then he didn't think it went through, and then I got a surprise email. But it was just a few days later that we went, and we had to travel a little ways, and otherwise it was a short process. They got us right in, quick jab, waited a few minutes. I think the biggest thing was the anxiety of getting the appointment, getting there, that kind of thing. The next day, or actually the afternoon, I didn't feel so great, but we actually weren't sure if it was just a bad RA day or if I was having, a little bit of the stuff that happens when you get vaccinated. But
Yeah.
the next day, I felt great, and I'm excited to get the second one.
Yeah, how long is that? Was it 2 months or a month and a half from
So
now?
they told me 3 weeks.
Yes, I think our appointment's 3 weeks to the day.
Yeah, so when we went after the shot, they booked the second one. So we have a return time, know when to go.
Okay.
And at least now I know what to expect, and I'm a good target. Richard gives me my biologic injections, if I'm not too squirrely, they can get me.
Well, that's a good question. Actually, that's a question I had, because we have a unique opportunity with Richard here as well. I wanted to ask you, because you would pretty much consider yourself a primary caretaker for Kelly, you think?
Yes, excuse me, but we tend not to even refer to sort of caregiver in that.
Yeah, I'm not thrilled with those terms either, but
I kind of view it
I
as
couldn't
simply
think of
that.
something else to call it, so I had to use
Yeah,
that
exactly,
word, so.
because we each bring things to the table, and we just have to switch it up more than than a lot of couples. That there are certain things that it just makes more sense for me to take care of, and then Kelly takes care of a whole lot of other things that takes off my plate, like scheduling. I half the time have no idea what's happening day to day, and that's okay because I know Kelly has it, and in exchange, I'll get things off the high shelf.
Right. You lift the heavy groceries, and I do the IT.
I'm glad, I'm glad you guys found your roles, and that's the way that well, when until it stopped working, how it worked for me and my ex-wife for a while. Yeah, you kind of find your level. So that's great. And I'm sorry again for using the word caretaker, but I wish they had another word for it. I didn't even like writing it down when I was writing my notes, but
we get it, because
I don't know what else to call it.
when there is sort of no other term, is what you fall back on. But
Yeah.
as long as we just look at it as long as we know what works for us.
Yeah, definitely. And you guys, like I said, are an inspiration. So, like I said, we don't have long, so I want to get to the first question. What is the most absurd or embarrassing thing you've experienced due to your illness? And I know that there's some because we've talked about some of the things before, but what
There's
sticks out? For both of you, for one of you, however you guys want to answer it.
there's a lot, and I'll have Richard chime in. But I don't know about you, Daniel, but having had a chronic disease since being a kid, I feel like it's very hard for me to get embarrassed because I've just had my whole life out there, and you go to the hospital and everyone sees everything and they just come in. And so I had this experience a few years ago where I was recovering from a knee infection, an infected joint replacement. So I had the second replacement, and I was doing my rehab. I was in a facility, and I was really working hard at my PT. And I would wear like t-shirts and like really casual clothing because I was working hard. I was really
Yeah.
sweating up a storm. And one of I think it was the lead nurse, I'll have Richard take over the
Actually,
story.
I want to correct that one thing. I wish she was a nurse. Really, what she was an administrator.
Oh.
And
Saw me in the hallway in my get up and somehow was upset about it and called Richard. Didn't talk to me, but said,
Oh.
we have to get her in proper attire. I mean, I wasn't going to business meetings in rehab. I was doing my physical therapy. And stuff like that where people think they know better about your dignity or whatever. And instead of talking to you about it, I don't know why they thought you could help.
right, and I immediately pointed out. I said, you realize Kelly's a communications executive at a major multinational communications firm in Washington, D.C. I think you could have this conversation with her.
I'm a grown up.
It's even funny that you mentioned it. We were just having this discussion with somebody through Twitter the other day about she went to get the vaccine, and instead of talking to her, they talked to the person that was pushing her wheelchair, like as if she didn't exist. And we had this whole discussion where it's like, yeah, I'm a grown person. Just because I'm in a wheelchair doesn't mean that you can't talk directly to me. So it's not the first time I heard it, and it's. What do they want you to do? Wear a tuxedo to physical therapy?
I didn't bring my formal wear to rehab, and I should have. I packed wrong, I guess.
And this was inpatient rehab, so you kind of have what you brought.
Right. And I was just focused on the therapy, and I think with us with chronic conditions, that's what we got to do. We can't worry about the other stuff.
Of course. It's not like there's a dress code for the hospital. If there was, it'd be like, the nurse would go, are you dressed for dinner? Well, you could give me a fresh gown. I mean,
well, she literally said to me, well, we're preparing people to go back into the real world. I'm like, she hasn't been locked up for years.
I'm institutionalized now. I can't make it on the outside.
No, it was really bizarre. But I think it's a good example of the weird stuff that happens. People talking about us, not to us.
Yeah. Yeah, they used to do it all the time.
I can think of, we still laugh about this, a woman who came and started yelling at me in a restaurant because she stepped in front of Kelly's 250-pound wheelchair, which surprisingly enough does not instantly sense her and stop.
Yeah.
And then turns and walks over to me and starts yelling at me about this encounter because I need to tell Kelly that she needs to have better control over her wheelchair and
can you imagine?
My husband is looking at her and I just didn't know what to say. I said, well,
right. What do you say? It's not a riding lawnmower. It's a wheelchair. Oh my God. Oh. All right, let's go on to the next one. Talk about an instance that sticks out in your mind where your illness/disability allowed you to help someone or make the world better in some way.
Yeah,
Which
so
I mean, you do it every day, but something
I
that
I
sticks out
hope
for you
so.
guys.
I mean, that's my goal, right? A little bit every day. Writing articles hopefully helps other people with RA or chronic conditions. But I think the other thing that I feel really strongly about is advocacy and trying to make things easier and more accessible for people with disabilities and chronic conditions. And I was really excited to be a part of actually a local news piece a few years ago in Washington, D.C., where we live. We have a system called Metro, which is like the subway system. And I was part of a news series about accessibility problems. And it was a combination of people using the system, not letting me ride the elevator. Like I had to wait
Mm.
ages and ages for people in yoga pants to get down the
And
elevator.
they put a lipstick cam on Kelly's chair and caught all this, which was really hilarious.
It was cool to kind of go undercover.
That is cool.
And the other piece that they did was about emergency evacuation. And we found out they basically had no plan for people with mobility disabilities, if the train broke down. And it was a real big problem.
Yeah.
Being able to do stuff like that and try to make the world a little bit more easy is really important to me.
And months later, we were in Florida, and we get into an elevator, and this woman looks over at Kelly and is like, I know you. You were on that news piece in Washington, D.C.
It was so
That's
cool.
cool. That's cool. That brings up another point, though. Like, and I was talking about this with my mom the other day. Like, yeah, sure, there's downsides to, there's obvious downsides to the stuff we go through, but we also get afforded some cool opportunities like that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to be a part of.
Yeah, totally, totally. I wouldn't have been asked to do that if I didn't have this specific experience.
Right. And that's why we like to do it. We like to show people that it's not all doom and gloom.
No.
So, and speaking of that, finally, and maybe most importantly, what is something good or positive that has come from you personally, for you, for having a chronic illness and disability? And Richard, you can chime in any way that fits in.
Well, I'll say,
or for you guys as a whole, whichever way.
Yeah, I'll say what I was thinking about, and that is, for me, having the illness and disability, of course, is challenging. I mean, you talk about that all the time, but I think it's also given me a really unique perspective. I really want to live richly, fully, as much as possible. And I really am very intentional about thinking about that. And I think it keeps things in perspective for me. Like, if I have a bad day at work, it's bad, but, it's not the end of the world.
I think of the experience we talked about earlier when Kelly was in the rehab. Is an infection in an artificial knee. They had to take it out, and she literally had to live for like 6-8 weeks, something like that, with no knee, where they put a spacer in with antibiotics to kill the infection. So we joke sometimes, when there's some kind of issue where somebody's complaining about something, it's like, oh, did you live too much with no knee?
Yeah, really.
It doesn't seem as bad.
It doesn't seem as bad. It keeps it perspective. And I know, I couldn't tell you how many times I've mentioned to people that Kelly gets me to do things I probably would never have done otherwise. And because it gives me a different perspective. It is very easy, honestly, I've been blessed with good health my whole life to never think about it, to never think about sort of the next day and what can I do today to make it special or different, and so Kelly absolutely has given me a completely different perspective on enjoying life.
You guys are going to make me tear up here. I love it. It's so special what you guys have. You know that, right? I mean, I know you know that, but just to tell you, you guys
It's
That's why
good
you're
to
two of
be
my favorite people.
reminded.
Yes, just to remind you, it is. It's inspiring. But that's pretty much all our time. Is there anything you guys want to add? Anything we missed that you might want to bring up?
I think I would say one more thing, and
Sure.
that is I think you're really good at pointing this out, and I love it.
Thank you.
But also,
Thank you.
living
We
with
didn't plan that. I promise.
no,
we didn't
we
plan
did.
that.
Yeah.
It's spontaneous. I told you not to say anything.
But I was thinking about how having a chronic illness and or disability can also be hilarious,
Yeah.
right? Like the things people say, the experiences we have. Like I laugh all the time at some of the
I know.
ridiculous stuff.
You have an infectious laugh, as I'm sure Richard knows.
But we have to
Your
be
laugh is
careful. We have to be
infectious.
careful about like when we laugh about stuff, because like a great example is obviously I do the driving when we go someplace, and but I am terrible. I can't say I'm ambidextrous because I'm not terribly good with either one, but I can't tell between my right and my left half the time. So Kelly has to still try to point which direction she wants me to go, but her fingers don't go in the right direction.
No. And then
So,
he's turning the wrong
turn
way.
the wrong way, and suddenly we're in some industrial park instead of on the highway, and
But we see
You
a
know-
lot of different things that way.
Yeah, get to see parts of the world. But you know what I kept thinking when you were telling that story is that a quote unquote healthy person watching you would probably be like, "Dude, am I allowed to laugh at that? Should I? I don't know. I don't know what to do." You know, they just lose their minds on stuff like that. Like, do I? No, I shouldn't laugh. Should I laugh? What's correct? I don't know what's correct. You know,
You're so right. They'd be like afraid to laugh.
Yeah,
And I'd be
right.
laughing loud.
Oh, it is. I call it the poignant absurdity of being disabled and chronically ill.
Yeah.
Because it is. And you're right. And I wish your infectious laugh could go to everyone in the world, because it is. I remember when we went to the Connection for a Health Union. I heard you before I even saw you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, guys, thank you for being on. You guys are two of my favorite people. Kelly Mack, Richard Faust, thank you so
our
much.
pleasure. Thank you.
Really awesome. And
Thank
we
you.
love your videos, Daniel.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Everyone else watching Chronic Briefs again in 10 days. And thank you for watching. As always, be kind, rewind, keep on keeping on, and we'll talk soon.